I'm Any New Province, and this is Net Benefits, the series where we explore the benefits of net decking in Pauper. This week we're playing Millver, or more specifically, the exact 75 card list that Jared James B took to a top 8 finish in the Pauper Challenge this weekend. The reason I know this is the exact 75 that Jared James B took to a top 8 finish isn't because I got the deck list from the Mothership website. They were late posting those. It's because I approached Jared James B in the Pauper Discord. I'll link it down below. They told me what their exact 75 was, and they were even gracious enough to give me a sideboard guide. So thank you so much, Jared James B. I can't wait to try out your deck. Millver is a perfect wedding of mono blue Delvers, counterspells, cantrips, and threats with this card, Jace's Erasure. It costs 1 and a blue, it's an enchantment, and it says, whenever you draw a card, you may have target player put the top card of his or her library into his or her graveyard. Jared James B cited that their inspiration for building this deck came out of seeing 3 other distinct mono blue decks and putting them together. I'll link the deck lists for the inspirational decks down below. Erasure works on its own with the card that you draw each turn. It gets a little bit better when you play powerful cantrips, and it turns into an absolute explosion when you play a Whirlpool Rider. It costs 1 and a blue, it's a 1/1 merfolk, and it says, when Whirlpool Rider enters the battlefield, shuffle the cards from your hand into your library, then draw that many cards. When Erasure is on the battlefield, your opponent then mills that many cards. I'll talk about the other ways we plan to draw cards next. First is Preordain. It costs 1 blue, it says scry 2, then draw a card. We're playing 4 of Preordain's trusty sidekick Ponder, which costs 1 blue, it's a sorcery, and it says, look at the top 3 cards of your library, then put them back in any order. You may shuffle your library, draw a card. Finally, we have Brainstorm, which is at least functional when you have one of the other cantrips in your hand. It gets pretty good when you have a Whirlpool Rider, and it's insane when you have a Jace's Erasure on the battlefield. Brainstorm costs 1 blue, it's an instant, and it says, draw 3 cards, then put the top 2 cards from your hand on top of your library. Our last bit of card draw is Gush, and it's probably the best raw card draw in the Pauper format. It costs 4 and a blue, it's an instant, but you usually don't pay 4 and a blue for it because you may return 2 islands you control to their owner's hand rather than pay Gush's mana cost. It draws you 2 cards. Thought Scour is over here on its own because it's also a mill spell, but I guess technically it's a cantrip. It costs a blue, it's an instant, and it says, target player puts the top 2 cards of his or her library into his or her graveyard. Draw a card. You usually can't win the game by just aggressively milling your opponent out. That's why you have to interact with them so you can buy enough time for Jace's Erasure to do work. Our first bit of interaction is Counterspell. It costs 2 blue, and it counters a target spell. Next we have Deprive, which is our 5th functional counterspell. It's not recurring any lands to our hand for any value this time, unless of course it's to get another Whirlpool Rider trigger. Actually, it's pretty synergistic. Anyway, Deprive costs blue, it's an instant. It says, as an additional cost to cast Deprive, return a land you control to its owner's hand. Counter target spell. Next we have one main board Echoing Truth, which seems to mirror the 1 Electrickery that Boros Monarch is playing in its main board. Echoing Truth costs 1 and a blue, it's an instant, and it says, return target non-land permanent and all other permanents with the same name as that permanent to their owner's hands, though maybe it's just tech against Relentless Rats. Occasionally, your opponent will start running away with the game as early as turn 1. That's why we've got Daze, so that occasionally we can counter their turn 1 play. We're also running 3 main board Snaps. They cost 1 and a blue, they're an instant, and they say, return target creature to its owner's hand, untap up to 2 lands. This is a nice piece of interaction. If we run into a deck that's low on creatures and only plays something like Thermal Alchemist or Gurmag Angler, snapping it back to their hand should be a good bit of tempo loss for them, and maybe we'll get to counter that spell on the way down next time. Next, we have just a slice of mono blue Delver's Air Force in order to give us a plan B, just in case our opponent can interact with Jace's Erasure in game 1. First, we have a Spire Golem. It costs 6, which is a lot, but it has affinity for islands, which means it costs 1 less to cast for each island we control. It has flying, and it's a 2/4. Our last non-land card is part of this deck's namesake. It's Delver of Secrets. It costs 1 blue, it's a 1/1, and it says, at the beginning of your upkeep, look at the top card of your library. You may reveal that card. If an instant or sorcery card is revealed this way, transform Delver of Secrets. It transforms into a 3/2 flyer called Insectile Aberration. You're probably no stranger to Delver of Secrets, and you can definitely see how this card can start winning the game if it flips early. Okay, let's look at this mana base. Just 17 untapped basic islands. This is so we might be able to keep a sketchy hand and ponder or preordain into the spells we need. It also means we'll have enough islands to pick up with our Dazes and our Gushes and power out our Spire Golems early. You're probably thinking, well, where did the rest of Mono Blue Delver go? That's a pretty good deck. And look, I found it. Here's the rest of Mono Blue Delver. It's just in the sideboard. First, we have 4 Fairy Miscreants. They cost 1, they're a 1/1 flyer, and they say, when Fairy Miscreant enters the battlefield, if you control another creature named Fairy Miscreant, draw a card. We have 3 more Spire Golems with their affinity for islands. We have 4 Ninja of the Deep Hours, which cost 3 and a blue. They have Ninjutsu 1 and a blue, which means you can pay 1 and a blue, return an unblocked attacker you control to hand. Put this card onto the battlefield from your hand, tapped and attacking. It's a 2/2, so that's pretty good rate on its own, but also when Ninja of the Deep Hours deals combat damage to a player, you may draw a card. Finally, we have 4 Spell Stutter Sprites rounding out our transformational plan. Spell Stutter Sprite costs 1 and a blue. It's a 1/1 flyer with flash, and it says when Spell Stutter Sprite enters the battlefield, counter target spell with converted mana cost X or less, where X is the number of fairies you control. And there it is, Millver. Thank you so much, Jared James B, for getting me the right 75 to take into net benefits this week. I seriously couldn't have even close to done it without you. We're going to take this deck live into a league at twitch.tv/AnyNewProvince. We're there every Monday night playing competitive Pauper decks. Before I go, I just want to remind you that you can like the video or subscribe to the channel down below. I'd seriously appreciate it. It's a great way to let me know that you've enjoyed everything, and it really encourages me to keep making great Pauper content. Thanks so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this deck tech, and hopefully I'll see you on Monday night.